It is 10:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The countdown is starting as we start with a Seymour Putters Masters update. Tiger Woods set to tee off in 2 minutes and 8 seconds at Augusta National. Right now, tied for the lead, Minwoo Lee and Harry Higgs at 2 under, but Tiger set to get underway in just a few moments. And welcome to opening day in Major League Baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are at the Chicago Cubs for the first game of the season, a 1:20 first pitch. And tonight, the Atlanta Braves begin their defense of the 2021 World Series, hosting the Cincinnati Reds at 7 p.m. The Nashville Sounds dropped their first loss of the season to the Durham Bulls 9-4 on Wednesday. Game 3 of a 6-game slate is tonight, a 6:35 first pitch at First Horizon Park. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome in on this Masters Thursday. It is an incredible sight at Augusta National right now. We get to broadcast through the vast majority of this thing throughout the course of our show today. And Tiger Woods sitting there, majestic. And what would you call that, Lucas? Pink? What shade of pink is that?
Yeah, that's a
magenta.
Hot pink. That's a hot pink.
It's a hot pink Tiger Woods out there on the prowl, baby. We got the Tiger Countdown clock on ESPN, and we've got Masters coverage for you all day long. 615-737-1045 is the number. That's how you jump in on the show this morning. 615-737-1045. We've got opening day, as you heard Lucas's update. The Braves hosting the Reds tonight. Title defense begins. Freddie Freeman has pissed off all of Atlanta, and it seems all of the Southeast. Everybody who's got any kind of rooting interest in the defending World Series championships. Bleep Freddie Freeman today. That's the energy. David Poile, general manager of the Nashville Predators. He's going to be here in about 15 minutes. Got a lot of things to discuss with him. A big game coming up at Ottawa tonight. Great time in sports. Just a fantastic time in sports. Masters week, or I guess weekend, this has different energy. And it has even more juice. I mean, look at that gallery. We're doing now an audio bit or a visual bit on an audio medium. Always works out well for us. But assuming that you have access to the Masters somewhere, I feel like most of you are watching it on your phones. By the way, Tiger Woods has just teed off. He's made a face like he smells something bad.
Yeah, already hates it.
He was furious with that particular shot. Looks like he landed in the bunker there off the first tee. So we will keep track of course, Tiger all day long. Lucas, how are we going to do this? We're going to let you flex your play-by-play muscle a little bit. We'll go to you for live Masters updates.
Now, we can do that. My play-by-play golf muscle is probably pretty weak. I've never called golf before. There's a certain mannerism that you need to call golf.
I hear cowardice. I hear cowardice in your voice.
Yes, we will have the Seymour Putters Masters update at the top of every hour, and we can do it throughout the show as well.
Lovely. Okay, so we got a sponsor on that, too. Very nice. So just kind of keeping track of things today. Brett Kern, by the way, Titans punter, going to come in tomorrow, be our Masters tournament analyst. That'll be a lot of fun. Brett's a scratch golfer. Those specialists, man. They're all killers on a golf course. They'll take all of your money, each and every one of them, because, they have the time. But it's going to be a fantastic tournament today to keep track of. I'm very jealous of anybody who's gotten to go. So I had a moment with my girlfriend a couple of weeks ago. And apparently the company she works for, a lot of the top, executives or account managers or whatever the proper title is, they're at Augusta today. And her boss or her superior, her direct report, was saying like, hey, does your boyfriend want anything from Augusta National? Because the thing, Master Swag, apparently they have an incredible selection. Like this is any guy's dream. No matter if you're like a diehard golf fan or not, to have swag, to have gear from Augusta that's a kind of crown jewel for sports apparel. And so he's telling her this. He's like, yeah, I'm going to bring back stuff for a bunch of people. I'd be happy to bring him back something if he'd like. And she just looks at him. She had no idea any concept of golf, any concept of Augusta, the importance of it, the importance of the Masters. She probably knows Tiger Woods from the TMZ headlines. You know what I'm saying? That, and we watched the fantastic, incredible 2-part HBO documentary on Tiger. And she's just like, nah, I don't think he's really into golf. So she's telling me this. I'm having a freak out. I said, call him right now. Right now. You call him this instant. You get in contact with him and let him know that I need polos, I need hats, I need anything. I'll take just a frozen pimento sandwich if you got it. Anything.
That's what I would want.
Sandwiches?
Yeah, don't give me the merch. Bring me back a pimento cheese sandwich.
Those don't strike me as something that travels well, bud. But, I've seen you eat worse.
Yeah, very true.
So we're looking forward to keeping up with the Masters today. Just kind of how things have gone so far. I mean, I guess my draw with this, and we'll do a little opening day stuff as well. Braves fans are pissed off for greatness as it relates to Freddie Freeman and the idea that they are starting their title defense without him, and he plays now for the hated Los Angeles Dodgers, which is, the baseball's latest version of a super team. But I think the thing with Tiger for me, and what makes this such an incredible moment, no matter how it goes, in all honesty, I genuinely cannot believe that he is out on a golf course, that I'm watching this. 25 years and I think it's like 3 days, 25 years and 3 days removed, 3 or 4 days removed from his first Masters win in 1997 with one of the most ruthlessly efficient rounds of golf any of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. The kind of thing that makes him, he is a bigger draw in his sport than anybody in the world right now. I don't think there's a bigger singular force in all of professional sports, at least in America, at least in North America. I don't think LeBron is this. I mean, they're all different kinds of superstars, right? They are internationally renowned. But I don't think the world over, when you look at the greatest winners that we have currently, LeBron, Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, I don't know who else Christian Pulisic, like who are we putting in like the most recognizable American athletes in their sport? The amount of people at the gallery for him today is insane.
In America, there's not a close second in my mind.
Insane. Nobody grips people the way that this man does. And after seeing the car wreck and all of the different things, all of the different peaks and valleys that Tigers, that we've been very, very much a part of in the news cycle, having had his biggest moment of shame come up during the heights of Twitter, the rise of Twitter in the middle of all that, alongside with traditional tabloids and things like that, his every move, his every step, his every facial expression dissected with the kind of importance that not many athletes draw. Now, it looks like that first shot didn't go into the bunker. It was right off the bunker. And it looks like he's gotten onto the green there.
It rolls right
off. Oh, that's brutal. Are we going to be doing this all day? Is this good
not.
radio?
No, it's not. We both just forgot what we were doing for a second while. But that's the point, right? We just totally forgot what we were doing to watch his ball roll off the green.
I guess my point is I just can't believe he's out there. I can't believe he's still doing it. 25 years. And multiple leg fractures. A car wreck that looked, it was a question as to whether, when you at least initially saw the photos and saw some of the police documentation of this thing, before you knew what his circumstance was, if I'd just shown you a picture of that car that flipped over in Los Angeles when apparently he was in a hurry to go get to golf lessons with Drew Brees, the question would immediately become, did he make it out of that? And this dude, who is just, I mean, the will to just keep going. It's inhuman, really, when you think about it. And he's a much softer version of that kind of competitive killer than he's ever been, right? We've talked about this earlier in the week. He's friends with the guys on tour now. People feel like he's approachable. It's not like I'm going to cut your throat as soon as you walk up next to me at the driving range while we're getting our practice swings in. He's a different version. He's an evolved version of himself because he's seen some stuff throughout the course of his career. But I can't wait. I mean, we're going to talk about this all day long. We're gonna have the top of the hour updates. We've got obviously Titan stuff to get to as well. David Poile, Preds general manager, is going to join us coming up next. Obviously, questions about Philip Forsberg's contract situation and how well his hockey team is playing right now. We'll keep you updated on the latest from Augusta. Going to be a fun show today. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Oh, it's a beautiful day in Middle Tennessee. Welcome in. Welcome back if you've been hanging out with us so far. Masters on the television. Tiger teed off. Augusta National, the first round underway. We've got opening day of baseball later tonight. We have to talk at some point about Braves fans' disgust with Freddie Freeman, and we are expected to be joined by Preds General Manager David Poile in just a few minutes from now. Looking at this opportunity for Nashville tonight. I mean, obviously that win over Minnesota at home before they've gone on to Ottawa, where they'll play the Senators this evening, 6 p.m. puck drop on Bally Sports. That game had the ability to, seriously affect their playoff aspirations against Minnesota. And all they did was come out and kick the Wild's ass. Like, it was a really, really impressive performance in a game that the Preds really needed to have. And that has to make our next guest feel really good, given that the postseason is just a few weeks away. General Manager David Poile joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. David, it's a pleasure to speak with you for the first time.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to speak to you. It is an exciting time. We're up in Ottawa right now and just going to have our morning skate, and we'll see what tonight brings, but hopefully a good effort like we had the other night against Minnesota. That was a really good game for us. So we kind of, as John Hines would say, we play to our identity. It was a physical game, and let's see what we can do tonight.
6 p.m. puck drop Central Time on Bally Sports is where you can watch the Preds take on the Senators. David, that game, we were just talking about it before you hopped on the line there. That game was a critical one in the Central Division, given where your team kind of sits in the postseason right now. What do you like to be around at this time of year when it is so tense and when you know that the playoffs are looming and that every game is of critical importance across the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm sure like all of our fans, I'm watching the scoreboard every night, and I'm certainly cheering for some teams to win and others to lose. That doesn't seem to be happening too often, and it seems like our division is really tight. So, beating Minnesota, that's a divisional game, and we call those 4-pointers because we do have this unbalanced schedule. If you can't win in your division, it's going to be hard to make the playoffs. And we have a pretty good record in our division this year, and we have some more divisional games, coming up. So every game is big right now, and like we found out the past couple of weeks, and we played a team like Buffalo that's not going to make the playoffs, and they beat us, and that's disappointing. The game against Ottawa a week ago in Nashville was really close. That game certainly could have gone either way. So again, I'm really happy with how we're playing, our effort, but as I always say, the other team's trying to win too. So it's every game's going to be close, and it's going to be tight just to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been so much fun to watch this team this year, David, and the offense has been spectacular. The stars on your guys' team right now are playing as well as any of them have ever played, it seems, and they're all doing it at the same time. But there's still that bottleneck basically in the Central Division because, as you mentioned, the other teams need to lose to give you guys a little bit of breathing room there. Where is the primary need for improvement right now when the margin for error is so thin?
Well, I think you saw that the other night against Minnesota. We've one of our calling cards, I believe, this year is getting off to a good start, having a good first period, getting the lead. And for the past seven games previous to Minnesota, we did not score the first goal of the game. And in my opinion, we were outplayed quite often in the first period. So, it's another cliche, but it's always good to be, get that first goal and be in the lead. We seem to play a lot better. We seem to be able to protect the lead a lot better when we have it. So I'd like to see that as many nights as possible. So just early in the year that was what we were doing all the time on a regular basis. We were getting out there and having the first period, and that was making a big difference. So let's see if that trend holds true to tonight in Ottawa.
Preds General Manager David Poile is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Preds take on Ottawa tonight, 6 p.m. puck drop on Bally Sports is where you can catch the game. That Wild game, David, looking at the way that John was tinkering with the lineup a little bit, putting Philip Tomasino in with Forsberg and Johansen. How did you like the way that looked and the way that line change, that lineup change played out?
I think that was a really good change. And obviously, young Tomasino got a goal and a couple of assists, and playing with the big dogs, as you say. He's most of the season been playing on the fourth line, playing on the second power play, and we've kind of been bringing him along slowly. But what we found here is that our scoring's been terrific this year. I think we're in the top 10 or 12 in the league. But the first line was really carrying us with Forsberg, either Duchesne and Granlund, and Duchesne. And John just thought with the two good centers that we have with Joey, just put Joey with Phil, put Granny with Duchesne, and let's see what we have. And that allowed Tomasino to get promoted, and I'm pretty sure that's the lines that we're going to see tonight. So young player. I mean, I really feel that maybe not full time this year, but in years to come, that's going to be Phil Tomasino's place on one of the top two lines. He's just a real good player, and he's one of those players that the puck seems to come to him all the time. And even when playing on the fourth line, he was getting lots of chances. So if you look at his minutes that he's played this year versus some other forwards, he's at least on a production basis, he's outperforming them. So I think it's a good sign for the future for us, for a young player like Tomasino. But right now he's in a prime position to see if he can continue scoring, because he's going to play, as I said earlier, probably with Forsberg and Johansen tonight, and many more production for him would be great right now at this time of year.
Well, and certainly those guys are operating at a high level. Ryan Johansen gets his first career hat trick the other night. Philip Forsberg and Matt Duchesne are playing out of their minds right now as far as the offensive efficiency is concerned. What can you say about the way that those three have stepped up over the course of this season? Duchesne in particular, given what the start has kind of been like for him throughout the first couple of years of his career in Nashville.
Well, obviously way more consistency. I mean, I kind of lump this into a lot of situations that, I think we all know I would think almost all of us, the last 2 years has been different with the COVID, and it's not always been perfect in terms of our team, full strength, travel, any other, a lot of other issues. But, the good news is I think John Hynes has done a great job, especially in the off season and training camp, and getting to know these guys better, to getting on the same page with them. And I think for the most part, everybody's playing to their potential this year. And as a general manager, that's all you can ask. I mean, we become a much younger team when you trade off players like Ryan Ellis and Arvidsson in the off season and just put in younger players. It's a big risk to step forward to hopefully take a couple of step backwards, I should say, a couple steps forward. And it's allowed guys like Tanner Jeannot to play a much bigger role, or Trent, and some of the younger defensemen like, say, Carrier or Fabro. So I do really think we're making progress, and the first big step of the recognition of that for everybody is to make the playoffs.
It's an exciting time of year, and we're certainly looking forward to it. It's always great when the Preds are in the mix, and once you get in the postseason in the NHL, it's one of the most fun postseasons in all of sports, as David well knows across many years of being a part of this, as any, just because as soon as you get in, you've got the opportunity to make a bit of a run out of it. Philip Forsberg, David, with the contract situation, I guess the easiest way to ask the question is, where are we now?
Well, I get that asked on a daily basis. I mean, we're continuing to talk, and as I just said, I think we want to be together, and like any negotiation, there's certain things that you have to agree on, and almost all the time it gets down to the amount. I'm going to make this really simple, and right now I think we've talked and we know what our differences are, and we just have to keep talking and hopefully get to a point where both sides will be happy. I can't predict anything right now, because Philip has certainly earned the right to sign with us or to go to free agency. But I think we're both in a good place, and I think Nashville and the Predators is as good a fit, if not better, than anywhere else for Phil. So we'll continue to talk, and hopefully we'll get this done sometime soon.
Preds GM David Poile is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. David, I just imagine people like stopping you in the hallway on your way to get coffee and be like, hey, Philip Forsberg, where are we now at this point? Is that basically how things are going? Like at any point in your life when you're on your way to get gas, like I feel like this is happening frequently enough to you on a not even just an everyday basis.
Well, I'm looking at it as a good thing. That means we got a lot of people care and interested and, believe in Phil and want him. And I do too. So if nobody was talking about it, I don't think that would be a good sign. So we'll keep working on it the best we can, and hopefully we'll get this done.
Preds and Senators tonight at 6 p.m. on the road. Bally Sports is where you can watch it. David, thanks so much for taking some time. I know you're busy right now, and we certainly appreciated the conversation. Continued health and success for the rest of the season, and we'll look forward to seeing how this thing plays out.
Thank you, Buck. Good talking to you, and hope to talk to you soon again. Thank you.
No doubt. That's David Poile, general manager of the Nashville Predators. I mean, that has to be happening to him everywhere. Hey, David, he's trying to just take a walk, get some fresh air. People come up to him. Hey, David, where are we now? Where's the Philip Forsberg thing right now?
First of all, is he going to trade him? What's going on? Are you trading for? Okay, now you're going to sign him. When are you re-signing him?
Oh, those questions have to be exhausting. But people want to know. That's the biggest question about. Well, I mean, the biggest question is, can they hold on to this final wild card spot? If we're talking about immediacy right now, Philip Forsberg has obviously been critical to this team's ability to not just have the success that they've had so far this year, but I mean, their scoring production is off the charts. We said Duchesne was at 36 recently. Philip Forsberg still leading the pack at 38. How many more games? 13.
13 regular season games.
13 regular season. He's gonna have a 40-goal season. Forsberg is. God, what a time to cash in.
And Poyle's been honest. I mean, he's maintained the same line the whole time. Like, yeah, we're working on it.
What's
right?
he going to say?
In so many words, we're working on it.
I mean, we've got two professional sports franchises that are parallels of each other right now. You got John Robinson being peppered. Hey, John, a Jets reporter tweeted that you guys are that New York's keeping an eye on A.J. Brown. Are you going to trade him? No, we want A.J. to be a Titan. A.J.'s a Titan right now. We'd like to keep A.J. a Titan. 30 minutes later, hey, John, are you trading A.J. to the Jets?
But as soon as that's over, then it shifts to Jeffrey Simmons. Okay, now what about Big Jeff, John? What about Big Jeff?
What an exhausting line of questioning that must be. Guys, I said it 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Twice to two different people. I'm not trading Philip Forsberg. I'm not trading A.J. Brown. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on this conversation. That really is the truth, though, man. The Central Division is stacked. And we talked about the implications. We did a Panzika Preds Minute on the implications of that Minnesota Wild game, that they just came in and handled business. And that's the exact kind of effort. I mean, you've heard John Hines say this. You heard David Poile say this earlier. They feel like that's playing to their identity. And, of course, everybody wants their identity to be 6-2 over a division rival while you're trying to climb into, they've basically been trying to climb out of this fourth playoff spot or this fourth wild card spot, this final wild card spot for 2 months? They had a moment where they were third in the Central Division, and then they got knocked back down because the other teams aren't losing. Colorado is nasty this year. It's going to be a fun postseason, certainly. I mean, the Preds have experiences coming in as a low seed and just knocking the holy hell out of teams. With an offense like that, it's tough to bet against them if they're going to get into this postseason. But first, you have to make it. And in order to make it, you have to keep winning because the other teams aren't cutting you any slack there. You feel good? Is there anything we need to know, Lucas, that I've left out about the Ottawa game tonight, other than what David mentioned about Tomasino probably going to be up in that first line again with Forsberg and Johansen?
No, yeah. I mean, I'll be interested to see when Ellie Tolvanen comes back into the fold. Had to kind of take a step back going into that game on Tuesday against Minnesota. Looking at the rest of the Preds' regular season slate, no more matchups against the Dallas Stars. And that's interesting because a game against the Stars would give you an opportunity to create some separation there as Preds are in that first, Stars are in that second wild card spot in the Western Conference. So don't get that chance to win head-to-head and create that separation on your own. So you got to take care of business here down the stretch.
What's the playoff ceiling? We have any idea? We have any idea right now?
No, it could be first round. It could be Western Conference Finals if this team catches fire offensively and UC Saros plays like he did on Tuesday night, 47 saves.
That's the problem with trying to analyze this stuff, and we'll get you a Masters update here in just a minute.
Oh, we were doing that last season, right, with this Preds team going into the playoffs.
I thought they were dead. We came on the air the first week I was on the air. I pronounced them dead in March. And
I think you said you would do a dunk tank if they made the playoffs.
We never did,
which never materialized. But the point is, once they made the postseason, it was suddenly, how similar is this Preds team to that 2017 team? Can they make a run? And then it was a first round exit in 6 games. But that's the conversation you're going to have each and every postseason.
I did the polar plunge. That's basically the dunk tank. Right?
Fair enough.
Does that not satisfy the dunk tank requirement? The moment of shame, me slipping and falling in the tank, and then being the only action that the rescue crew got that day because I slipped and fell. I wore the tracksuit as a bit, and it was too heavy, and I went back under the water.
Yeah, it has the same effect, I guess.
I went under twice, if it makes you happy.
That is a hazard. You should learn to swim, buddy.
What, not knowing how to swim? I don't think it would have mattered. That thing weighed 100 pounds on me. I went for the visual bit. It was funny. The salmon-colored tracksuit that people, somebody photoshopped Derrick Henry's face onto it the other day. It's disturbing.
Like, you should be able to go out onto a boat, like, at a lake or something, or go canoeing without fearing for your life, I feel like.
I do. I just, if I go, I go. Like, if I don't have a problem getting in the canoe.
I'll teach you to swim.
I don't want to learn how to swim. 28 years. I'll be 29 in July. I'm coming up on damn near 3 decades of not knowing how to swim and still being alive. That's survival, baby.
Dogs know how to swim, Buck.
The cats probably know how to swim.
Oh, the cats can swim.
The one tries to get in the shower all the time. It's weird. I thought they're supposed to hate that stuff. I thought they were like me. It's just, why? What do I want to do? There's nothing appealing about lake water or ocean water. It's gross. And the pool, I don't have a pool at my house. Am I going to go to a public pool? No, come on. You're covered in muck, in rivers and lakes, and probably, urine and fecal matter and, $12 vodka that some drunk party boat next to you, some bachelorette party next to you just dumped into Percy Priest. If you go to the ocean, you feel gross, you feel briny. It's literally sea salt that's caked onto you from the sun and the sea. And then the public pool is one of the most disgusting places in America. You will not convince me otherwise. Why does anybody enjoy this? Why?
Puka in the Zone TV chat, Puka says, it is concerning watching Buck almost drowning in a baby pool. It is just a basic human survival instinct, I feel like.
I didn't, because the rescue crew, it's the only thing they did all day. 4 grown men in scuba suits standing around, a 10-foot long tub waiting for some idiot who wore the wrong clothing to have to save them from drowning. But I didn't. Survival.
Learn to swim.
These are, if things get slow, road trip or field trip. We'll go to a public pool. We'll do the show from a public pool, and we'll push me in. I'll maybe not diving board, but we'll push me in at the end of it, and then we'll find out if I live or die. Maybe wait till like the last year of my contract for that. Don't get any ideas. 615-737-1045 is the number. When we come back, there's something on the internet that has Lucas furious, and it has to do with trade scenarios for the Tennessee Titans. We'll tell you what that is coming up next. Praises pouring in on the Zone TV chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you don't listen to us on FM radio, live streaming on the Zone app, if you listen to the podcast, you can also hang out with us, all 4 shows, in the studio on your favorite streaming social media platform. You vultures won't let me alone. Why do people not just... Why? If I say that I don't want to learn how to swim, why is that not enough for people? Why is that not enough?
For your own well-being.
John Monkey on YouTube. How the hell does a full-grown-ass adult not know how to swim? Hold your breath, paddle arms and feet. Don't sink. There, Buck, I taught you. I didn't ask you to. Why are we like this? If I say to you, hey, I'm going to order a pizza. I like anchovies. And you say anchovies are disgusting. If I sit there and harass you about, no, you're going to love it. You're going to eat the anchovies. Shut up. Paddle your feet. Move your arms. Don't sink and eat the anchovy. No, you're going to tell me to bleep off. I don't want to learn how to swim. Just let me sit there. Let me drink by the pool. Let me drink in a beach chair. As long as there's alcohol, I'm fine. I don't need it. Everything else you can keep. Oh, goodness. All right. You were pissed off when I called you this morning. Lucas was. When we do our pre-show meeting. I actually saw somebody who listens to the show. He's out there washing windows in my neighborhood. And we were doing a production meeting the other day on the phone. I'm walking around. I look like your dad, pacing and huffing, power walking and stuff like that. Guy takes out his AirPods and goes, hey, love the show. I was like, hey, what do we talk about today? What do you want to hear about today? Because me and Lucas got nothing. Anyway. So when we put together the show every morning, try to think of, what's most relevant with the Titans, with Tennessee, Preds, Grizzlies, Nashville SC, those last 3 in no particular order. What's happening in the NFL? What can we use? What do people care about? What are people talking about? And Lucas, spitting with rage, says to me, did you see this Adam Schefter hypothetical trade article? Or what did you DM me?
Yeah, I sent you a tweet from Adam Schefter linking an ESPN article. Says, playing out DK Metcalf's trade market, 7 hypothetical offers. So I sent it to you. I said, poll question, is there a bigger waste of time in NFL media than hypothetical trade offers? And you said, not if they come from Adam Schefter, which is fair, because if Adam Schefter is giving hypothetical trade scenarios, that means he's probably getting hypothetical trade scenarios.
It's like our next Mock Draft Monday guest, Bruce Feldman.
Right.
Who's the Fox Sports sideline reporter. He's one of college football's premier insiders, and he does a mock draft with notes from coaches that he talks to. That's a relevant mock draft. If Adam Schefter puts out, hey, hypothetical trades, then I'm inclined to think about it. But this is not coming from Adam Schefter. This is just an ESPN.com article that Schefter tweeted.
A collection of multiple ESPN beat writers around the NFL about what potentially the team that they cover could be willing to give up for DK Metcalf. I've always found it to be the most pointless exercise to say, oh, what if the Browns sent over a 4th and Baker Mayfield for DK Metcalf and took on this percentage of his contract? Or in mock drafts, what if Washington traded their 4th-round pick for a 5th-round pick to go get this player on day 3? I just think it's the biggest waste of time when we have no idea what these general managers, how much value they maybe put into those picks or certain players or percentages of contracts, how much they're willing to give up. The Titans got Robert Woods for a 6th-round pick.
Yep.
Who would have hypothetically manufactured that trade, right? If that was a hypothetical trade scenario for Robert Woods, what do you think would have been on the table there? Right? If you're reading an article about a trade scenario, the Titans acquiring like what? A 3rd-round pick?
I don't want to steal your thunder, but like this, you run it through the context of the Amari Cooper trade, and that was like a 5th and a 6th. So yeah. I would probably say, ballpark 6th.
I mean, you see so many trades.
I understand what you're saying. Your point is that this is useless.
Yeah. Like,
this means nothing.
How many of these moves happen where, the GM is just trying to offload this player, get rid of the money, and then just get whatever capital he can and move forward? We just don't know the mindset of these general managers with these particular players on both sides. I've always thought it's such a waste of time, whether in mock drafts or just free agency, period in the NFL, to sit there and draw up, oh, what if the Giants wanted to give, this wide receiver and this 3rd-round pick for this player?
Well, And, I mean, in a perfect world, these ESPN beat writers would be going up to, so Tim McManus covers the Eagles, right? I don't know if he's reaching out to people and being like, hey guys, in the Eagles front office, and being like, if you were to trade for DK Metcalf, how would this go? What would this look like? Now, they could either tell him in vague details, they could give him specifics, or they could tell him to bleep off, do it yourself, right? We don't know what's happening on the individual beats there. I would say that the vast majority of these reporters, I don't know each and every one of them specifically. I haven't followed all of their careers, but, largely if they're good enough to work at the worldwide leader at sports, they're doing something right on their respective beats. But I understand what you're saying. Like, if I went up to John Robinson and was like, hey, John, I hear Aaron Rodgers just bought property in Franklin, or Brentwood, because the Franklin thing reportedly was incorrect. Hey, John, if you were to trade for Aaron Rodgers, what might that look like, buddy? You don't want to tell me? You want to talk about it? No, Ryan Tannehill's our quarterback. But if I'm working on this thing for ESPN, my editor would love it if you would give us a little bit of feedback, just a little bit, on what an Aaron Rodgers package might look like. Yeah, go bleep yourself.
I think it's most egregious in mock drafts. Unless, like you said, Bruce Feldman, and you feel like there is information backing that projected move within the draft. I've just always thought it's so dumb to say, oh, well, the Steelers could give up their second-round pick to move up to 14 to get Malik Willis, because the Steelers have to want to do that, and then the other team has to be willing to do that and think that the value is there to give up that pick.
You're basically saying that you believe Bruce Feldman more than you believe Tim McManus or Jake Trotter.
Sure.
That's what you're saying to me. So this is nothing but you swinging blindly at this innocent beat writers whose editor probably reached out to them and said, hey, we don't have enough clicks on the website this week.
Yeah.
Write me hypothetical trade scenarios.
It's not
Give
their
me
fault.
3 and we'll pick the best of them.
It's not their fault. It's just the overall
You're
concept.
acting like it's their fault.
It's the concept that I hate. Unless you're Adam Schefter and you're Bruce Feldman, and I can trust that this comes from information that you have, you're not just throwing it out into the ether, then yeah, I think trade should be banned in mock drafts moving
buddy,
forward.
I don't think Adam Schefter's beyond reproach anymore.
No, that's fair.
He's kind of...
He's had a rough year.
I mean, if I asked you that, like, around January, after Derrick Henry came back, after Schefter, doubled down a couple of times on the idea that he was done for the season. Now, maybe you say the regular season, maybe you say for 2021, but point stands that there have been a couple of moments where people have peeled back the curtain a little bit on that, how Adam Schefter does the insider business, which, by the way, you have to, there's a little bit of selling that you got to do if you're going to be the guy, like anybody in any aspect of life. If you've reached the top of your respective profession or industry, you have done some things at some point that are, probably with a little bit outside the lines, or not what people would associate with letter of the law, in this case, journalism. And by the way, all of us in moments would probably say, yeah, I've done X, Y, and Z to cut a corner here or there if it helped me get ahead a little bit. And I'm not saying that, I'm not holding that against Schefter. Schefter's done a tremendous job of creating this industry where, he is the guy across all of it. But yeah, I don't think, you say Adam Schefter and Bruce Feldman like that's a given anymore. I think a lot of people look at Schefter, at least here locally, look at Schefter a little more skeptically. That in Minnesota with the whole Dalvin Cook thing. And in Washington with the Mr. Editor thing. And, there's a couple other things that have come up here in the last couple of years. But anyway, when we come back, we are going to get into a conversation about quarterbacks in the NFL. There are 2 guys, one who was just here in Nashville and made a little bit of news, that could potentially be up for a starting job in the NFC South. We're going to tell you who that is and why that conversation matters here locally, coming up next.
It is 11 a.m. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Breaking news from just moments ago, courtesy of ESPN's Adam Schefter. Former Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks and former defensive coordinator Ray Horton have now joined Brian Flores' race discrimination class action lawsuit against the NFL and various teams. Ray Horton spent the 2014 and 15 seasons as the defensive coordinator for the Titans under Ken Wisenhunt. Now, for a Seymour Putters Masters update, Harry Higgs atop the leaderboard at 2 under through 8 holes. 4 golfers behind him tied at 1 under, and Tiger Watch getting started. He teed off about an hour ago. Tiger even through 3 holes. It is opening day in Major League Baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are at the Chicago Cubs for the first game of the season, a 121st pitch. Tonight, the Atlanta Braves start their title defense, hosting the Cincinnati Reds at 7 p.m. The Nashville Sounds dropped their first loss of the season in their second game last night to the Durham Bulls, 9-4. Game 3 of a 6-game slate is tonight, a 6:35 first pitch at First Horizon Park. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and you're home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right, we got big stuff to start the second hour. Welcome in, welcome back. If you've been hanging out here with us on 104.5 The Zone, Lucas, first we got to give people give people the thing that they are thirstiest for right now. I'm being literally yelled at by people on Twitter and in my Instagram DMs that we haven't given a Tiger Woods update since 10:20.
Even through 3 holes.
That's right. There's your Tiger Woods update. Settle down. We'll keep you updated with the Masters stuff. Just take a breath. Understand, we've got a plan today. We'll stick to the plan unless Tiger does something crazy. 615-737-1045. You can jump in if you like. Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network will be our guest here in just about 15 minutes from now. But we have breaking news, as you just heard, in Lucas's sports update.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
Really?
I had to.
Did you see the face I made?
I did. I considered not doing it, but I'm glad I did.
You're the worst. All right, here's the news. So as you heard Lucas mention from Adam Schefter about 3 minutes ago, former Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks, who interviewed here for the job that Mike Vrabel ultimately got, and former defensive coordinator Ray Horton, who was interviewed here before Mike Mularkey got the job, have joined Brian Flores' race discrimination class action lawsuit against the NFL and various teams. So Schefter has the individual complaints from both Wilks and Ray Horton. Now, of course, if you need a refresher, Brian Flores, former Miami Dolphins coach, fired after having back-to-back winning seasons, suing the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Broncos, as well as basically if you sue 3 clubs, you sue the league, all right? And implicating the ownership, John Elway, of various clubs as basically conducting fraudulent Rooney Rule satisfying interviews to just get a minority candidate in there, but to have decided in the case of Brian Daboll, when Brian Flores went to interview for the Giants job, shout out Bill Belichick for, doing the thing that so many of us have done in our lives and texting the wrong person, a message that you meant for a person that's about them, can be a problem. But Steve Wilks, I'll read a bit of the complaint here, and this is relevant because he interviewed here in Tennessee, along with Matt LaFleur and Mike Vrabel in that hiring cycle. Those were the 3 candidates that it came down to. Mr. Wilks was discriminated against by the Arizona Cardinals in a manner consistent with the experiences of many black coaches. Mr. Wilks was hired as a bridge coach and was not given any meaningful chance to succeed. I add parenthetically, this sounds like the situation that David Culley was just dropped into the middle of because they didn't want to saddle Josh McDaniels with a 4-win roster. Sound familiar? Okay. Mr. Wilks was hired as a bridge coach. He was unfairly and discriminatorily fired after just one season. His white GM made poor personal decisions and was convicted for a DUI during the offseason, was given a contract extension. That's not funny, but it's just a funny jab to throw into the middle of it. That guy got a DUI, and he kept his job. He got more money. Anyway, Mr. Wilkes was replaced by a white coach, Cliff Kingsbury, who had no prior NFL coaching experience and was coming off of multiple losing seasons as a head coach at Texas Tech. Mr. Kingsbury, armed with quarterback Kyler Murray, has been given a much longer leash than Mr. Wilkes, and to his credit, has succeeded. That said, Mr. Wilkes, given the same opportunity afforded to Mr. Kingsbury, surely would have succeeded as well. Now, I don't know that I agree necessarily with that, but the complaint goes on. Here's the kicker, because the Titans just got implicated in this thing, kids. Mr. Flores and Mr. Wilkes are joined by Mr. Horton. Mr. Horton, Ray Horton, was a longtime NFL coach and defensive coordinator when he was interviewed for the Tennessee Titans head coach position in January of 2016. This turned out to be a completely sham interview done only to comply with the Rooney Rule and to demonstrate an appearance of equal opportunity and a false willingness to consider a minority candidate for the position. Indeed, the Titans' all-white ownership and management ultimately hired Mike Mularkey, a white candidate, for the head coach position. Years later in 2020, Mr. Mularkey admitted in a podcast interview, Mularkey out here doing podcasts? That's the first I've heard of that. What the hell? All right. Mr. Mularkey admitted in a podcast interview that the Titans told me I was going to be the head coach in 2016 before they went through the Rooney Rule. And so I sat there knowing I was the head coach in 2016, and they went through this fake hiring process, knowing a lot of the coaches that they were interviewing, knowing how much they prepared to go through those interviews, knowing that everything they could do, and they had no chance to get that job. Look at Mike Mularkey, man. That's a heavy allegation. The allegations pertaining specifically to Mr. Horton are located. Okay, it goes on to the amended complaint, blah, 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 blah. It's got a link to the Mularkey podcast. It's on YouTube. Holy hell. Lucas, let's maybe we can find that Mularkey podcast.
Oh, he was a guest on a podcast?
I don't know. It just says in a podcast interview. What the hell, Mike? I would have taken you. I had a podcast. I still have a podcast. I'd still talk to Mike Mularkey. This is wild. So now the Titans are joining the Broncos, the Giants, and the Miami Dolphins as teams being implicated in this racially discriminatory lawsuit that minority coaches are class action lawsuit, important to note, that minority coaches are coming together to file against the NFL and the aforementioned clubs. Man.
It was always Mike Mularkey.
It was always Mike Mularkey. And now, important to note, John Robinson was not a part of that front office at the time.
Rustin Webster.
Well, you may fact check me on this, Lucas, but I think that, Rustin Webster, I believe Rustin Webster was fired after that season. I think he played that thing out, even though they fired Wisenhunt after a handful of games that year. Right? Because Mularkey took over. They won the game in New Orleans. Marcus Mariota to, I think, Anthony Fasano. I think that was the game-winning touchdown.
Yes.
If memory serves.
Or was it Supernaw?
It was one of these, Well, Fasano had a good career. And Supernaw, just one of the funniest names in all of sports. Austin Stanley, my colleague at A to Z Sports, just texted me, says YouTube link doesn't work for the Mularkey podcast. We need to find this. I'm dying to know what the hell podcast is Mike Mularkey doing? He's supposed to be playing golf. He's hanging out in Jacksonville. That's funny.
Okay, so John Robinson was hired by the Tennessee Titans on January 14th of 2016.
Okay, so it would have been at the end. So I don't care when they hired John. When did they fire Rustin Webster? Was it after the conclusion of the 2015 season? After Marcus Mariota's rookie year?
Yeah, I'm trying to match up John Robinson with Mike Mularkey getting the full-time head coaching job.
Mularkey was hired first by Amy Adams Strunk because he was the tight ends coach on the staff under Wisenhunt. Mike was given the interim job. I think this was 4 games into the regular season that year. Again, Marcus's rookie year. Vrabel going on Rich Eisen's show today, says Kenneth Kroll. Ooh. All right, we may have to keep an eye on that.
So
you think Rich Eisen's going to ask Mike Vrabel about this stuff?
Looking at this PFT article from Pro Football Talk article from January 16th, 2016, that's when the news broke that the Titans announced the hiring of Mike Mularkey from an interim role to be their next head coach 2 days after John Robinson was hired by the Titans.
Right, and it's fair to assume that John was told coming in, hey,
right,
this is our guy.
But he was the GM when Mularkey was officially given that role.
I wonder if that was done to cover their asses a little bit. Because now, technically, John's implicated. Because, fairly or unfairly, like they are, at least to an extent, right? Because they have the cover of, hey, the general manager was in place before we made the hiring of the head coach official. And, of course, that relationship between John Robinson and Mike Mularkey and Titans ownership fractured pretty quickly.
According to Sports Illustrated, the headline, Titans fire general manager Rustin Webster, came on January 4th, and Vin Marino assumed general managing duties in the meantime.
So Vin Marino, their capologist, their salary cap expert, the guy who manages the money in the cap. So he was the placeholder. They put John into place, but they had to have known prior to Mike Mularkey. I'm sure they asked, hey, John, you good with this? Because this is our guy. And, first-time general man. I don't want to speak for John Robinson on this. I think the timeline is interesting there as to whether or not to kind of cover themselves a little bit, that John Robinson was not put into place first before they made the Mularkey hire official to say, no, this had his blessing too. Because based on the way that situation ended between those two and between Mike Mularkey and this organization, it didn't sound like it went well. Because I remember that final Mularkey press conference, man. That was my first year. That was my first year on the job. That was the first time they'd made the playoffs in like 14 years. That was Marcus Mariota catching a touchdown pass to himself in Kansas City. That was on the road. No, that was after the Kansas City game. Mike Mularkey on the podium because there were rumors as going back to the final week of the regular season. I remember people coming up to me in the press box and being like, hey, he could win this game and they could still fire him. And they beat the Jags, and Rap Sheet started to drum that up again. Like he and Rappaport before the Kansas City game, we were all sitting in the press box. Mike Mularkey's job is in jeopardy if they do not beat the Kansas City Chiefs today. And then after the Kansas City game, Mike gets on the podium and is like, I don't feel supported from, not a freak out, but he had like a rare, honest moment for a head coach where he said basically he didn't feel supported from ownership and management. And then
it was a fair feeling.
It's completely fair.
Right.
Because then, end of season press conference, we're all sitting in the auditorium at St. Thomas Sports Park. He's asked, Mike Mularkey is, plan on making any changes to your offensive staff, i.e. Terry Robisky as the OC? Mike said, no, don't anticipate any changes to the staff. Then went on to talk about the Senior Bowl. And the next day, Mike Mularkey was gone. Kids.
And it was the correct decision by the franchise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you want the quick bullet points of the timeline here?
I do.
Mike Mularkey, Ken Wisenhunt fired November 2015. Mike Mularkey takes over as interim head coach, coaches the remainder of the season. On January 4th, 2016, Rustin Webster is fired as the general manager of the Titans. Vin Marino steps in with interim general manager duties. January 14th, John Robinson officially named the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. On January 16th, Mike Mularkey officially named the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans.
Mike Mularkey just got him into some stuff, man. And listen, Mike felt he got done dirty at the end here. It seems that's coming back around. I want to see how this is going to play out.
Well, we had this discussion just the other day, didn't we, about Todd Bowles being promoted? How does that work with the Rooney Rule? When an organization has its decision made, they want a succession plan. Well, it seems like the Titans had a succession plan here, but they still had to check the boxes for the Rooney Rule.
What? This is curious. What time is that Vrabel interview on Eisen today? Can you look that up for me? I'm sure Rich Eisen has a show tweet that he's put out because I mean, one would have to assume that Mike is going to be asked about this, especially since Steve Wilkes was in contention for the job here and ultimately did not get it. It ended up being between LaFleur and Vrabel, and then Vrabel got the job. And this comes after Ray Horton is saying that he never had he went through a completely fake interview because they'd already decided on Mike Mularkey. So that's basically 2 instances in the last 2 coaching cycles for the Tennessee Titans where they may have where they're going to be examined under that microscope. And, it's unfortunate for them, or it's unfortunate if you're them, that Mike Mularkey seems to have a little bit of an axe to grind, one would think. When we come back, Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network is going to join us. We're going to talk about her latest mock draft, analytically driven and with matchup-based analysis that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. We're also going to talk to her about the efficiency of these wide receivers that are getting paid right now. That's next. Okay, welcome back. We'll keep an eye on the latest in the Brian Flores class action suit for you today, now that the Titans ownership has been implicated. That coming out from Adam Schefter just a few moments ago. In the meantime, let's talk a little draft with Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network, their analytics expert, one of the best in the business, and some of the best mock draft content that you will find at this time of year. Cynthia, we're grateful for your time today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And by the way, I went to college with Brian Flores. I've known him for 20 years.
I'm sure you've been asked this before. What have you made of this entire thing with Brian? What he's done, seemingly out there by himself for a hot minute before more of these coaches have started to join this class action suit. This is a pretty incredible undertaking that he's in the middle of.
Yeah, look, Brian we went to Boston College together, and it was very interesting. He was 3 years older than me, three grades older than me,
Mm-hmm.
and ever since then, he has literally been very serious, he was a very nice person always, but very principled, he understands exactly what all of this means. I spoke to him at the Combine this past February, and I guess it was March, but we talked about it, and he said, it's going to get very difficult because this is going to be a very long road, but I believe in it, and I stand by the convictions of my beliefs. And like I said, he is a very principled human. This is one of the most courageous people that I've met.
Yeah, that's certainly not Brian Flores' principles that are in question at this point, but there will be time for us to have this discussion at a later point. Mock Draft 2.0 has been available for about a week. How many mock drafts do you do, Cynthia, and how do you kind of determine when to put them out?
Yeah, I think this year we'll probably get up to 4.
Okay.
A lot of it, so this is a little bit unprecedented and I would imagine my editor would have liked me to do maybe a few more because we've had such a wild free agency that it hasn't been, usually we get to 2 and that's it, but now we're going to be up to 4 because it just so much has changed and there's still so many pieces left to be sort of figured out. So it's been interesting. It's been a very interesting because of the activity and free agency, because of trades and all of these crazy things that we aren't used to.
It has been a spectacular offseason. So, I mean, listen, we were dealing with A.J. Brown trade rumors that were completely unsubstantiated just because people are bored, Cynthia. They went like a week without a Tyreek Hill trade. They started to get a little bit itchy down here. They needed some juice, and it's just completely ridiculous.
It's interesting because, and on some level, considering all trades, I know some teams who I've been working with that have some of the players that have been proposed in trades. I blew my mind.
Yeah.
Once this is all over, we can talk about it. But it's the calling players about, or calling other teams about franchise players that are literally that you didn't even think were even considered to be up on the chopping block. But nope. Everything has been on the table this offseason. It's crazy. It's
been fantastic, and that's why you need to be watching all of the coverage on NFL Network. Of course, their live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft from Las Vegas, April 28th through the 30th. Cynthia Frelund is here with us now talking about her mock. So you put this disclaimer on every edition that you do each year, Cynthia, but I feel that we need to kind of refresh it for the audience. You look to maximize each pick according to win share value for the upcoming season. For the uninitiated, if you could just explain to the audience what win share value is for those who don't know.
In a way that's similar to WAR in baseball or PER, like the player efficiency ratings in basketball.
Right.
It's a metric of trying to establish a value for an individual player. And there's 2 ways that you can measure. You can measure against other players of the same position, or you can, for draft picks, you can put what's the value of player X on the Titans versus what's the value of the same player on the Lions. And you can see how the win share would change. So you can measure it 2 separate ways, and it's just a measurement of relating similar things so you can rank them.
And it's a great resource to kind of understand a little bit, a different dimension of how these players are evaluated across the board. Now, you put this in the latest edition, by the way. NFL.com is where you can go for all of Cynthia's work and all the great content being produced there as well. 0 quarterbacks in the first 32 picks, which is, fairly uncommon in a certain circumstance. Now, it's important to say that that's unlikely to happen. But what has stood out about this quarterback class from a win share value standpoint? Because I think a lot of people understand it's a down year, but I don't necessarily know if they understand fully why.
Well, in part, the first part is that the opportunity, Baker Mayfield, while not available as a free agent, is available for trade. There are a number of quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo being one of them, that potentially could move. Now, they are not necessarily free agents, but they could move, and the market is impacted by their availability. Meaning, if you don't think that you're going to get a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, perhaps orchestrating a draft day trade would be a better opportunity.
Sure.
The draft class this year with the quarterbacks, there are no guys who on any team get you a win share, meaning the value in this particular season, that would be anything higher than 3 wins. So for a quarterback, Tom Brady is worth 6 wins, and he's the 8th or 9th best quarterback. Right now, Patrick Mahomes, he's above 6.6 or 6.5. Aaron Rodgers is 6.6 at 3, so that kind of gives you a measurement. So none of these quarterbacks forecast to add more than 3 wins, which is essentially the same as a backup quarterback value. I will tell you that I do have the most likely scenario when I run models of how many quarterbacks will be drafted in the first round. The number comes up as 3. Now, that doesn't mean they should start in 2022 to maximize wins, but that's kind of how that all plays out.
Certainly something that may be in play here in Tennessee, something to keep an eye on as we get closer to the draft in Las Vegas. So you have Jahan Dotson, the Penn State wide receiver, to the Titans at 26th. I love it. I want it to happen. It'll never happen because he's not their type, and it drives me crazy, Cynthia. But he makes so much sense. What do you like about the player?
Well, Dotson it's an interesting thing because, look, playing in Penn State, you don't necessarily see, like, right now it feels like there's this pipeline, like OSU has a bunch of players. You always see guys coming out of Alabama or even LSU that have these, like, you think about wide receivers when you come from there. When I look at Dotson and what he brings to the table, there's a certain level of physicality and route running expertise that would add something to what A.J. Brown already brings. So adding the ability to spread the defense and make the opportunity for Derrick Henry not to have to face all of the loaded boxes. I know that Derrick Henry's great against the loaded box. It doesn't really typically matter, but it is often better to not have to have it to be such a hard thing to get past. So I like the ability for him to draw defenders out on the types of routes that would clear space for the other people.
I would love that for that to be the case, but they seem hugely content to run into the loaded boxes, Cynthia. I know, kind of wide receiver here. It's always been so elusive, and we've talked about it many different times in many different iterations of the draft process, but they seem to be, not that it's a bad thing to have a type at a certain position, but they don't necessarily see or haven't previously felt the need to add that kind of a complement that allows for this to be a little bit more of a wide open offense, which I think all of us would desperately welcome here in Nashville.
You know who else would welcome it? I think Ryan Tannehill would welcome it because then play action works a lot better when you have the threat of the run and the pass on every down. Obviously the Julio Jones experiment was really marred by the fact that he was injured, and it would have been really interesting to see how that played out a little bit more with more reps on the field. But I think that would be, and especially, this division's really interesting. The AFC is a nightmare just in general. But if you're going to be in one division, there are 2 teams in your division that are not as great as the other ones, right? And so it makes it a little bit more interesting in this situation. So you got to kind of remember that, if you're going to be a playoff bound team and you're going to win playoff games, you have to have some of the things that in the AFC where all of these quarterbacks can throw. You can't just you have to figure out ways to make your run and pass work really, really effectively.
And certainly losing a playoff game 19-16 is no way to go about that. Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network is our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. We're hoping that Tim Kelly, as the passing game coordinator here now, Cynthia, can bring at least a little bit of diversity of concept to this Titans offense because, I mean, I don't know how often you watch them. I don't know how often you study them, Cynthia, but the first down runs here, the fact that they continue to lead the league in first down runs, they drive us insane. Insane.
So I'm going to tell you, of course, I watch that is what I spend my time doing, watching every single game. I count all of it, computer vision, measuring it. It's so nerdy, but I love all of it. But I'll tell you, my new thing is to watch what happens on second down.
Okay.
Because I think that some people think about, so like first down, they think if we're getting 4 yards, then that is considered a win on first down. But I would argue that most teams now are throwing the ball on first down. And like you said, the run is infuriating. It can be infuriating, but it's only infuriating if you're getting into third and long situations. And that's where things get dicey. So second down, the decision that happens based on the response to the decision on first down, that's where I think the money is made. The key to the situation, like if you go watch Bengals film, the Bengals defense is good at stopping people on second down. If you go watch the Bills film on the games where the Bills were very, very efficient, they were very good on second down. So it's kind of my new thing to watch what happens on second down. So I would say, don't be mad at the Titans if they're running on first down, so long as second down is going to be the money down where they're getting either in third and long or earning first downs.
And you know well that is not the case. I can interest you in second and 10 runs here too, Cynthia. I got a bunch of them.
That's what I'm saying. You got it. So don't go so mad at first down. Get mad at second down.
It's the smarter way to get frustrated about your football team, Cynthia
If you're
Frelund.
going to get mad, at least get mad smartly, you know?
She's one of the best in the business, Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network. At C Frelund is where you can follow her. More iterations of the mock draft to come at NFL.com, and make sure you can catch her on the NFL Network, where their live coverage of the 2022 NFL Draft will come from Las Vegas, April 28th through the 30th. Cynthia, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. We know you're busy right now.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. It's always I love Nashville, so I got to come out and visit there.
You're welcome on with us anytime, but I'm sure you got better things to do when you come to Music City.
No, I'd love to. If I'm out there, I'll come.
That's Cynthia Frelund of the NFL Network, kind enough to give us some of her time. I cannot tell you how much that speaks to me, that kind of analysis. That second and 10 run, man, that is the most infuriating play in sports, and I've seen them do it 1,000,001 times. It doesn't matter who the running back is. It doesn't matter who the wide receivers are. That's all I want. Tim Kelly, if you can hear this, if you can hear me, please, just maybe a third less second and 10 runs.
If Tim Kelly is not here to cut back on second and 10 runs, what is Tim Kelly doing?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, Lucas. I will not have the answer to that question for you until probably about a month through the season. But that's not good enough. Until then, I got to think of second and 10 halfback dives driving me crazy in the press box until the end of time. 615-737-1045. All right, quickly. We haven't done a Masters update in a minute.
Tiger, even through 5 holes.
Yep.
Little off the mark on his first couple of tee shots, but he seems to be settling in. He's putting well, and right now his head is slightly above the water.
Did you bet the Masters?
I did not.
Did you not? Why?
No, I just haven't really gotten around to it. Maybe I will this weekend. Throw some stuff down.
There was a couple of odds boosts that I liked in there. Certainly, that's going to make it's such a fascinating tournament. So there's 5 of the 55 players under par right now so far in the first round. First hole playing plus 22 over par, 2 birdies, 21 bogeys or worse. The rest of the course is playing 44 over par. Tiger Woods through the 5th hole, as Lucas has just told you, is even.
Yeah, Harry Higgs and Taylor Gooch tied for the lead at 2 under.
At this point. All right, so we will keep you informed with the Masters throughout the course of the day. Of course, we're on live, as is the golf coverage, so we're happy to be able to watch that with you. If we get distracted in the middle of a segment and we just start to, if you just hear periodic silence and a gasp or a slamming on the table, then it means Tiger Woods has probably done something, and you'll have to forgive us because we're watching this thing in real time with you guys. I'm going to be so interested to follow how the Titans try and correct this offensive situation, because there are things this season. Lucas, we talked about the thing that outraged you earlier. I have a thing of my own later on in the show. Wednesday for the dumbest thing in sports this week was not enough. between Lucas's hatred for hypothetical trade rumor articles, trade offer articles that was on ESPN.com today. I have my own list to rail against regarding the Titans offense, or a key player on the Titans offense, later on in the show. This rejuvenation, how you kind of get back to center, or rather find that kind of rhythm that allowed you to manufacture as many offensive explosive plays as you did. How that changes or how that adjusts, how these guys go about their business with the roster that they've currently got, I honestly think it's one of the most important questions in the league this year. Because I really think in this AFC, it's the difference between the Titans mattering and not. Now, you can matter. You can win your division. I mean, is Indianapolis the betting favorite right now? Again, after Matt Ryan? I haven't checked the latest odds. I think Lucas will be able to pull that up here in a second. The Titans were the favorites to win rightfully so, the favorites to win the AFC South prior to the Matt Ryan trade. I don't know if that adjusted at all since the Matt Ryan trade was made, but I do think that complicates the holy hell out of your situation here. Because even as the AFC went crazy around you, and you've done your own work to make sure that you can have better offensive efficiency, Austin Hooper and Robert Woods are going to factor into that in a big way, and we've still got plenty of time to address a bunch of needs, they do, before the NFL draft or during the NFL draft.
According to BetMGM, the Titans are plus 115. The Colts are plus 125. It's very, very close, but the Titans are still the favorite.
Okay. So they're assuming a bit of a learning curve for Matty Ice. I think for the competitiveness of this football team, that question, just as the defensive issues in 2020, how they fixed them from 20 to 21, that is the thing that hovered over their heads the entirety of last season, and all they did was go out and kick every quarterback's ass, even in losses. Joe Burrow was made to feel the Titans' defense. How they do that, or how they do their best impression of that on the offensive side of the football, and how much of that is still being married to Derrick Henry and a certain style of play, it's going to tell us a lot about what the ceiling for this team is with the players that are currently on the roster. Because this is about it, kids. This season, it feels like it might be it for this current accumulation, this current roster. Because I don't know how much longer you're going to have to play this game, or you're going to be willing to play this game, if everybody else is scoring 28 points per game and you're sputtering around in the mid-20s. 615-737-1045. That's the number if you want to jump in. When we come back, we had a coach in local sports. This qualifies as local, doesn't it, Lucas? We had a coach in local sports say that the fan base needs to make it nasty this weekend. We're going to tell you who that is coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Welcome back. Masters Thursday underway. Crowd getting fired up for Tiger. Even right now on hole number 5. Lucas, keep you updated with the latest in the standings throughout the course of the day. But, of course, the one focal point is going to continue to be that man in the hot pink golf shirt. Tiger Woods out there. I mean, he doesn't look 100%, just kind of keeping tabs on this. Obviously, we're watching it live with you throughout the course of the radio show today.
Oh, there's his first birdie.
There it is.
On number 6.
That feels nice. Look at him. Striding. He doesn't look like 100% right.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
No, he's in pain. I mean, he said as much when he spoke to the media earlier this week.
So 1 under, teeing off on the 7th right now. Tee shot. Looks like it's going into the rough there.
Into the pine straw.
Yeah, pine straw. Eternally frustrating. I love that we get to do this. Did we do this last year? Did we have the Masters on while the show was on?
We did, but there wasn't nearly the hype around Tiger because he wasn't coming off the circumstances he is this year.
Right. No,
where the biggest names in golf media were stunned that he's even playing in this thing.
I mean, I continued to be amazed by it, but we'll do far more tournament and analysis, insights and analysis tomorrow with our, of course, golf expert, the Titans punter, Brett Kern, is going to be here in studio with us for the 11 o'clock hour. Talk some golf, and Coach Mack will be there in the middle of that as well. It'll be a bit of a circus, but we'll have a lot of fun on a Friday. So we got audio of a local coach saying he wants the fan base to make it nasty this weekend. Lucas told me that. He didn't give me any other context. Lucas, you want to tell people who the coach is first? You want to play the audio? And, well, I guess, we're not going to have people guess.
It's Tony Vitello.
Okay, very good. Play the audio.
What's your message to Tennessee fans as you get into the meat of the conference schedule, a couple of big home series against Missouri and Alabama, just as far as what you want the atmosphere to be like these next 2 weekends?
3 words, make it nasty. Make it nasty is what comes to mind, and that's because, I mean, he's a legendary coach, and his career is over. Otherwise, I wouldn't use his name. But, I mean, Coach Maneri, again, really good guy to me, unbelievable career. But he was so used to being on the other side where his stadium is very difficult. It's very unfriendly for an opponent, and the script flipped a little bit. And, to each his own with their opinion on where they think the line is, where fans go too far. To me, Trey Morgan is a stud first baseman. I think our students ragging on him for a whole game and pointing out everything that he does, it's kind of part of the deal. And he's so good, he might hit a home run and point at those fans on the way around the bases too. That's kind of what makes athletics fun.
So that's Tony Vitello.
Yeah, that's on Fox Sports Knoxville. The
Drive.
Yeah, that's the show.
With Lucas's buddy Russell Smith. Actually, I think I've been on The Drive before.
Really?
Trey Wallace used to host The Drive.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, I've been on The Drive before. Very nice. Make it nasty. He's out here. He's
Make
out here.
it nasty. That's against. He's talking about a series against his alma mater, by the way. They're playing Missouri this weekend.
So the way that he's talked about, I mean, when the way that he's talking about Paul Maneri there, the LSU baseball coach, and the way that there was, just some high school, I don't even know what you want to call it, just largely complaining from a legend who didn't need to be. Paul Maneri is regarded one of the most impressive baseball coaches in college baseball across a very, very long, distinguished career. Deserves all the praise and acclaim that he gets, but also, like, if you're going to complain about how, out of order the Tennessee fan base is, when it's not like LSU is an easy place to go down and participate in any athletic competition, regardless of what sport you're playing. I just think the whole thing is laughable. But Tony Vitello's out here, rapping Tiger lyrics, telling people to make it nasty like he's on spring break. I love it.
I wonder if there is a tiny little bit of animosity because he didn't really get considered for the Missouri baseball job when it came open. That's his alma mater. That's who they're hosting for a weekend series at Lindsey Nelson Stadium.
If there is even a tiny bit of animosity, that guy's going to get the juice out of his players.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't want this to sound like I'm picking. Well, I mean, I literally did pick sides in the College World Series last year. I think I declared myself on the Vols bandwagon just because it was fun and I like their T-shirts. But if this Tennessee team feels like it has a gravitational pull and that bothers Vandy fans, because obviously we're here based in Nashville and we of course support the local college baseball team that does nothing but win all of the championships, it seems, or at least has all of the best players and consistently is in competition for the championship. I don't want Vandy fans to feel slighted, but Tennessee has better energy around it. It has more fun energy around it. And then, of course, Vanderbilt will get right, dominate again, and be right back in the College World Series come June. It's going to be a lot of fun. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on our conversation. When we start the final hour, I have something that is deeply, deeply annoying to me. It's going to very much annoy you too. We are in the middle of list season, and a ranking has been made about running backs. And I will tell you that Derrick Henry is not the number one running back, and it has made me outraged, utterly outraged. We're going to talk about that next.
It is 11:58. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Two former NFL coaches have joined Brian Flores' lawsuit against the NFL and a certain number of teams alleging racism in hiring practices. One of them, former Arizona Cardinals head coach Steve Wilks, and former Titans defensive coordinator Ray Horton, who alleges the Titans conducted sham interviews with Horton in 2016 to comply with the Rooney Rule before ultimately elevating interim head coach Mike Mularkey as the next head coach. Now, a Seymour Putters Masters update as Tiger Woods birdies on 6. The par 3 gets him to 1 under. That's where he's at now through 7. At the moment, it's Taylor Gooch atop the leaderboard at 2 under through 9 holes. Multiple golfers behind Gooch tied at 1 under. And welcome to opening day in Major League Baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are at the Chicago Cubs. That is the first game of the 2022 season, a 1:20 first pitch. But tonight, the Atlanta Braves begin their title defense of the 2021 World Series, hosting the Cincinnati Reds at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
All right. Final hour is underway on this Thirsty Thursday. Hope everybody's feeling right, living well. Got us for one more hour here with you. Lucas is making it happen. We've had a fun show so far with a little bit of breaking news sprinkled in between the Masters coverage, opening day in baseball finally made it to us, Braves and Reds tonight. And this story that has just come out while we're on the air today of two black coaches, joining Brian Flores' lawsuit, class action lawsuit, alleging racial discrimination in NFL hiring practices. Tennessee Titans are now implicated because the complaint filed by Ray Horton, who was a defensive coordinator here under Mike Mularkey, or rather under Ken Wisenhunt, forgive me, under Ken Wisenhunt, who was interviewed for the job of the head coach that Mike Mularkey ultimately got. He is now claiming in his complaint that his interview was a sham. And I'll read directly from the complaint that Adam Schefter has put out on Twitter. At Adam Schefter, of course, is where you can find this on social media. So Steve Wilks, Ray Horton, these are the two black coaches that have joined Brian Flores' class action lawsuit. And important to note, as we mentioned earlier, Steve Wilks, a minority candidate, the only minority candidate I remember them making public that they interviewed for the head coaching job the second time around when they ended up landing on Mike Vrabel. So just something to keep in mind. Here's the complaint from Ray Horton. Mr. Flores and Mr. Wilks are joined by Ray Horton. Mr. Horton was a longtime NFL coach and defensive coordinator when he was interviewed for the Tennessee Titans head coach position in January of 2016. This turned out to be a completely sham interview, done only to comply with the Rooney Rule and to demonstrate an appearance of equal opportunity and a false willingness to consider a minority candidate for the position. Indeed, the Titans' all-white ownership and management ultimately hired Mike Mularkey, a white candidate, for the head coach position. Years later, in 2020, Mike Mularkey admitted in a podcast interview that the Titans, quote, told me I was going to be the head coach in 2016. You know what? Rather than read this quote, Lucas, we have the audio. What is the source of this audio? Because the podcast link, it seems, was incorrect.
Right. So there's a Steelers podcast that I don't have in front of me that is the source of this audio about Mike Mularkey essentially alleging what Ray Horton is in the lawsuit. And then the other bit of audio is his appearance on Ross Tucker's podcast talking about the timeline of getting hired.
Let's lead with the quote where Mike Mularkey is admitting that he was told he was going to be the head coach before they went through the Rooney Rule.
Your coaching career that you might have done differently or changed?
That's a good question. I'll tell you guys this. I've always prided myself in doing the right thing in this business, and I can't say that's true about everybody in this business. It's it's a very cutthroat business, and a lot of guys will tell you that. But I allowed myself at one point when I was in Tennessee to get caught up in something I regret, and I still regret it. But the ownership there, Amy Adams Strunk and her family came in and told me I was going to be the head coach in 2016 before they went through the Rooney Rule. And so I sat there knowing I was the head coach in 16 as they went through this fake hiring process, knowing a lot of coaches that they were interviewing, knowing how much they prepared to go through those interviews, knowing that everything they could do, and they had no chance of getting that job. And actually the GM, John Robinson, he was in on the interview with me. He had no idea why he's interviewing me, that I have the job already. And I feel, I regret that's because I pride myself in my kids first, that they do the right thing. And I always said that to the players. And here I am, the head guy, not doing it. And I've regretted that since then. It was the wrong thing to do. I'm sorry I did that. But it was not the way to go about it. Should have interviewed like everybody else and got hired because of the interview, not early on. So that's probably my biggest regret.
Mike Mularkey sounds pissed. Now, we cannot assume that Mike Mularkey is doing this off just purely noble intentions, although the feeling that he's expressing is completely understandable if he genuinely feels that way. I have no reason to believe that Mike Mularkey does not. But we do have to also take into consideration that Mike Mularkey was pushed out is not the right word, but he was on his way out, whether he wanted to be or not, because of the situation that had started during that 2017 season prior to the Jacksonville Jags game that was a win and in. Titans made the playoffs. Before the Chiefs game, rumors start up again on social media from NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport that Mike Mularkey's job is not safe. They go to New England, they lose. Mike Mularkey is giving a press conference at the end of the season. He's asked if he anticipates any changes to his offensive coaching staff, because at the time, the feeling here in Nashville was that Marcus Mariota's potential was not being maximized. And in retrospect, Mike Mularkey may have understood more about Marcus Mariota's limitations than anybody else, given the way that that was Marcus's best career performance, was the 2017 season under Mike Mularkey. And in 2016, certainly the way that they performed with DeMarco Murray as the running back that was brought in by trade by John Robinson. But think about what Mike Mularkey just said. John Robinson is interviewing Mike Mularkey for the job that Mike Mularkey already has. Mularkey knows this, according to him, on the Ross Tucker podcast, a second piece of audio. Apparently, Mike Mularkey's doing interviews all over the place. I'm pissed. Should we call him? Hey, Mike, you got a comment? This was him on the Ross Tucker podcast.
Well, I got hired basically before the GM. I'm not even sure he's aware of that, but I was hired before he was even hired. But it was John Robinson, and ownership. Amy Adams Strunk got a little more involved with the everyday operations, and with the length of my contract, I only had a 3-year contract, so that didn't show a lot of support from the very beginning. So I just thought we had to do what we did to get to the level we were. We came up short, obviously, in the division game against New England, and I don't really never had a conversation. There was never any year-end meeting. No, we should do this or we should do that. It was absolutely nothing. It was just we're going to let you go. So, anyways, I'm over that. I'm happy in life right now. Enjoyed my job last year with the Falcons, and looking forward to lots more to do with this family here.
That's former Titans head coach Mike Mularkey on the Ross Tucker podcast.
Again, the timeline was John Robinson officially named January 14th, 2016. Mike Mularkey officially named January 16th, 2016.
Again, safe to assume that Mike Mularkey, that it did not take John Robinson to decide all of a sudden in 2 days that Mike Mularkey was going to be officially the head coach.
Yeah, those are the dates of the press releases.
If they botched this, and listen, I understand that the Rooney Rule is one of the most heavily scrutinized rules in all of American professional sports. There are people who have issues with it because it creates situations that are, problematic in the idea that you're getting, sacrificial coaches because of the Rooney Rule. David Culley, Steve Wilkes, Guys who have been through this before. Dave Caldwell stopped taking job interviews because he was tired of being the Rooney Rule guy. If they indeed did do this, if they indeed did conduct sham interviews, the Tennessee Titans, the ownership, Amy Adams Strunk, this is the exact kind of thing that the league is trying to figure out how the hell it roots out. I don't know that the Rooney Rule is not a perfect solution. Nobody is claiming that. But if the rule was broken and the Titans are a guilty party in this, there have to be consequences. There absolutely have to be consequences.
Well, how much more of this are we going to see, right? I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time that a former coach comes out saying, yeah, I had a sham interview at this franchise. I had a sham interview, in San Francisco, whatever it might be. I bet this happened every coaching cycle since the Rooney Rule was invented.
How many former head coaches like Mike Mularkey are willing to go on record and say things like that, though? This changes it. That's my biggest frustration with coaches once, when they're in public spaces, when they're doing interviews, when they, leave coaching or are fired from their positions across coaching, the profession in general, they protect each other. And, they protect state secrets. Most of them want to work again. Mike Mularkey's in a different headspace. He retired after being the tight ends coach for the Falcons. He said, I want to go play golf. I want to go spend time with my family. And apparently when he gets called for a podcast interview, he'll give you the goods on what the hell it is exactly went down from his perspective. Brian Flores' case just got a whole hell of a lot stronger. And the Tennessee Titans are about to become a major focal point of this investigation, both internally by the league and by the lawyers who are starting to sniff around and smell blood. 615-737-1045. That's the number. If you want to get involved, Patrick is in Franklin, wants to chime in on this conversation. Hello, Patrick.
Hey. I've been hearing just about all these coaches and they're whining about this and that. The fact is it's a cold, cruel world. Some people are up to jobs, some people are not. And
no. Hang on. One second, Patrick, because I think that's an important point that I need to flesh out. Up to job or not is not the question here. The question is, are they getting the job? Whether they're even up to the job, they have to get the job before we can figure out whether they're up for the job. The problem is they can't get the jobs. They can't get the fair shot.
Well, I think an interview is a fair shot.
Not if it's conducted under false pretenses, not if you've already hired their candidate like the New York Giants did. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay. Point taken.
So, I'm not trying to argue with you, Patrick. I just think there has to be a fundamental understanding of what the issue here is.
You have these franchises that are highly valuable properties. And at this point, the ownership doesn't have latitude to say, I like this guy the best. If you think that they're not considering all the candidates available, then somebody's not thinking about this right. I mean, these owners are motivated to do what's best for their franchise. They're not going to hire somebody just because of this or this nuance or that nuance.
Precedent would say, Patrick, that that's not entirely true. I mean, and I appreciate the call. 615-737-1045 is the number. I mean, there is no way that Woody Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets, hires Adam Gase to be their head coach if not for the good word of Peyton Manning. Like, these deals get to, and here's the thing. And in fact, I want to give you a little taste of what this actually looks like, because it's completely fair for people who are not, who have been through hiring or firing processes before. If any of you are business owners and have hired or fired, interviewed candidates before for jobs that you feel may or may not, fit within their qualifications, it becomes a complicated thing. But coming up next, I'm going to give you an example of just how dirty this process can be, because it's across sports. It's not just in football. Football is just really the only one who has the rule for this. Your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
All right. So the Titans are in the middle of this Brian Flores lawsuit now. Mike Mularkey's just hung him out to dry. We're going to call a lawyer. We're going to call Dan Lust. God bless him. He's on call for us when we need legal advice. And I want to find out if Mike Mularkey's podcast interview that's now circulating around on the internet, the audio that we've just played for you a little bit earlier, I want to know if that's admissible.
But important to know, that's not a recent, like he didn't do that a month ago.
Or he did that in 2020.
Right. So it's not like this is in response to the lawsuit.
No, this is just organic. That Mike Mularkey is out here on a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. That Mike played in Pittsburgh. That's what the connection is.
He played there and coached there.
Yeah. So worth not just a random podcast, but he's on a Steelers podcast. In fact, Lucas, I think it's important to reset the audio for people again. Mike Mularkey, who has now helped tie the Titans into this thing. Ray Horton, former defensive coordinator under Ken Wisenhunt and interim coach at the time, Mike Mularkey, has now implicated the ownership of the Titans for giving Mularkey the job without going through the Rooney Rule situation. And they are using the audio of Mike Mularkey on this podcast for the basis of their claim.
Your coaching career that you might have done differently or changed?
That's a good question. I'll tell you guys this. I've always prided myself in doing the right thing in this business, and I can't say that's true about everybody in this business. It's a very cutthroat business, and a lot of guys will tell you that. But I allowed myself at one point when I was in Tennessee to get caught up in something I regret, and I still regret it. But the ownership there, Amy Adams Strunk and her family, came in and told me I was going to be the head coach in 2016 before they went through the Rooney Rule. And so I sat there knowing I was the head coach in 16 as they went through this fake hiring process, knowing a lot of the coaches that they were interviewing, knowing how much they prepared to go through those interviews, knowing that everything they could do and they had no chance of getting that job. And actually the GM, John Robinson, he was in on the interview with me. He had no idea why he's interviewing me, that I have the job already. And I feel, I regret that's because I pride myself in my kids first that they do the right thing. And I always said that to the players. And here I am, the head guy, not doing it. And I've regretted that since then. It was a wrong thing to do. I'm sorry I did that. But it was not the way to go about it. Should have interviewed like everybody else and got hired because of the interview, not early on. So that's probably my biggest regret.
Now, in Mike's, just to play devil's advocate, he still took the job. You know what I'm saying? Like Mike Mularkey didn't turn down the Titans at the time. So Mike can feel regret about that, but also understand that he's a part of the problem. And it seems that he's done that after some reflection. And let me say this first and foremost, because I understand that there's a segment of the population that doesn't believe in equal opportunity and affirmative action policies that doesn't, and I'm not one of those people, but I am someone who thinks the Rooney Rule is deeply, deeply flawed. I understand. We all understand. No matter what your position on this is, and wherever that opinion comes from, whatever influences in your life makes you think that NFL coaches that NFL coaches of color or of different races, non-white NFL coaches, are not getting proper opportunities, whether you think that is true or not true, and whatever your reasoning for it is, we all understand that there is a workforce that is 70% African American. And that is not the case. You have two minority owners in the NFL right now, Shad Khan and Kim Pegula, who I believe is Korean, who co-owns the team, the Buffalo Bills, with her husband Terry. That bleeds into head coaching, that bleeds into general managers, and then the players, which are the workforce, are looking around, looking for careers post-playing life, saying, hey, I provide something that I think a lot of these other coaches provide. And I would appreciate it if you would give me a fair and honest opportunity, Rooney Rule or not, to interview for the job. The Rooney Rule has created a lot of these problematic situations. Because I told you on the other side, I'd give you a little bit of a glimpse as to what this looks like. Now, I'm not saying that this has happened in Tennessee, but this is something that I've talked to coaches about before. You've got agents of coaches. Think about college football, right? agents of coaches run certain sports. Hell, half of CAA now runs the New York Knicks, creative artist agencies. They represent A.J. Brown, they represent Derrick Henry, they represent Chick-fil-A, Coca-Cola, Peyton Manning, and Robert De Niro. They got everybody. Almost every Super Bowl commercial you've ever seen in your life has been formulated. Parts, pieces, companies, brands, players, actors, whatever, those have been put together by CAA. They're one of the most powerful entertainment management companies, if not the most powerful entertainment management company. And they get their claws into, and listen, I don't want to sound dismissive of agents. I have an agent. My cousin is a sports agent. Like, I understand how that side of the business works. I understand the necessity of it. I also understand that it can influence things in an improper way. I have heard of agents of coaches in the NFL who will provide an organization with a minority candidate to interview, like a coach that they represent, to satisfy the Rooney Rule. Be like, hey, I've got this African-American coach that you can interview, and then you can hire my guy that you actually want to hire, the other coach that he represents. Or he or she. It doesn't have to be. It's this is not uncommon. This is the kind of toxicity that the Rooney Rule has in part helped create. Again, I say to you, Rooney Rule is not a perfect solution. I wish that I had a solution to the problem. This is for people in think tanks that are much smarter than I am. But if it is a rule in the league, and in the case of the Titans, it is being alleged that the local professional football team did not follow the rule and is conducting sham interviews, punitive measures need to be taken. That seems to be the direction that this is going. We're going to call Dan Lust in about 5 minutes to see his legal opinion on these things. Your phone calls are welcome, 615-737-1045.
But the bottom line in this case, if the Titans were set on elevating interim head coach Mike Mularkey, is that they did conduct a sham interview with Ray Horton, if that was the case, but also with every other candidate they interviewed not named Mike Mularkey, right?
Yes.
They interviewed Doug Marrone in that cycle as well. If they were set on Mike Mularkey, that also was a sham interview.
I'd have to go back and refresh my memory on the candidates who they interviewed before landing on Mike Mularkey. But it seemed Mike Mularkey is putting his name on, yeah, they told me it was my job.
Right.
They told me it was my job.
We don't know how open they were to other candidates, but from the words of Mike Mularkey, it sounds like basically not at all.
Basically, the rule is, hey, think about it. Just talk to some other people. Interview some people that don't look like you. Okay? Just maybe think about it. And if you come away, basically, they're saying, hey, don't hire a guy until you've done your interviews. But again, I come back to agents who can be a blessing in certain circumstances and who can be a curse. Because an agent will say to an organization, to ownership, to a general manager, hey, my guy's got a lot of interviews stacked up. I mean, Josh McDaniels is a super popular coaching candidate. John Gruden's agent got him more money every coaching cycle than anybody in television, because there would always be that conversation around, John Gruden's thinking about coming back into the league, thinking about coming out of the television booth, ended up doing it for $100 million. And I'm sure there was pressure applied in multiple circumstances where an agent is saying, hey, if you let my guy walk, he's going to get a job at the next interview he takes. This is the kind of cycle of problematic behavior that the NFL is trying to dig itself out of. It's just the problem is the Rooney Rule doesn't do it. Andrew in Portland is next. Hello, Andrew.
Good morning, Buck. Hey, so y'all are hitting it on the head with what you're talking about here. The Rooney Rule is causing a lot of this problem. Let me say this. There is a problem in the NFL when it comes to black head coaches, black ownership, etc. But if you look at this, what are you supposed to do if you have a candidate that you are targeting in on that's a hot commodity, like you just mentioned, like a Josh McDaniels? If you wait to hire that guy because you have to satisfy a rule that is flawed at best, then you're going to lose your candidate. So to me, there's really nothing wrong with the way they did it. They followed the rule, although it was after they got their guy. But if they didn't tell Mularkey, hey, you're our guy, but we have to conduct these interviews, then they're going to lose Mularkey. So the way this is phrased, I've read it, and it says white ownership and white coaching staff, or however it was worded. It was specifically stating because they're white is what they were trying to imply
Sure.
here. They can't imply that. That's a false allegation because Mike Mularkey was the guy they wanted, and they had to satisfy this rule. So to me, the rule is the problem, and there is a problem in ownership as well, not with the Titans, but just as a whole with hiring African-American coaches and the like. So that's what I got. I think this is just all for nothing. I hope it blows over, but it's a problem if it is race-driven. That's all I got. See you, fellas.
Well, here's what I'll say, because I agree largely with Andrew's point until the last part. I don't hope that this blows over. I hope that they find a more equitable solution. I hope they find a better version of the Rooney Rule rather than saying, hey, along with considering minority candidates, you have to be interviewing women as well. I hope that just becomes a commonplace occurrence, that a rule is not mandated to require these kind of things to take place. I wish that it would happen organically. It doesn't seem like it's happening organically. So people like Brian Flores and Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton are pissed. They're saying, okay, keep pushing us. Because if you do, we're going to air out your dirty laundry in a way that is uncomfortable for you. Whether it actually enacts change or not remains to be seen. But that, the Brian Flores situation, it didn't seem, at least the strategy of it didn't seem like it was all that put together at the start of this thing. I think this lends it a little bit more solid ground. But you know what? I'm not legally trained. Let's talk to a lawyer. Dan Lust at Sports Law Lust is where you can follow him. Dan is so great because he's joining us on short notice. Dan, I said we had somebody call a lawyer, and then you magically appeared on my phone line. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. The truth is, once I saw the Titans involved, I was going to reach out to you independently, so I'm happy our brains are in the same places.
Yeah, well, the problem is I don't have the brain sufficient enough to talk about this, Dan, so anytime this stuff comes up, I've got to rely on a better brain than mine, which is why we are grateful that you appear on our show. So you're first, you've heard the Mike Mularkey audio. We've played it for the audience. He's asked about his regrets throughout the course of his coaching career. He says the part that he played in the Titans violating the Rooney Rule is his biggest regret. What can that audio do for Brian Flores' class action suit?
Well, I guess we can keep it to Horton right now, right? So the question that I think when I was on with you guys last time is this going to remain a class action? I think that's still up in the air. Is a question as to whether the Titans' practices for hiring are sufficiently similar to what went on maybe in Miami or with the Giants or with the Broncos, right? These are all different teams, different organizations. Obviously, they're all bound by the Rooney Rule, but it's not abundantly clear that this is still going to remain a class action lawsuit. Assuming it does, right? Assuming we're going to tie all of these together, I think it's certainly helpful for the cause. But when it pertains specifically to Ray Horton, Mike Mularkey, Mike is going to be called as witness number one, right? Whether he knew that this lawsuit was on the horizon, I would think he did not. But his statements pretty clearly paint the picture, in his own words. I think he said he used the term, it's like fake hiring process.
Yeah.
When there's allegations floating around from other coaches that these are sham interviews, and you have Mularkey saying that there was a fake interview process. He knew ahead of time that he was going to be hired. It's certainly not a good look for the NFL. But as for your particular question, I don't know yet if we're going to keep this as a class action. So we'll see if it's helpful for Flores, but certainly going to be helpful for Horton.
Dan Lust is with us, sports attorney. The Conduct Detrimental podcast is the podcast that you need to be listening to for a deeper dive on all of these things that are come across the sports landscape from a legal standpoint. Dan does a fantastic job at breaking it all down. So looking at this, Mike Mularkey, how much more of an impact, Dan, does this have, given the fact that this lawsuit was not a thing in 2020 when Mike Mularkey taped that podcast, that this is not audio in response to the lawsuit. This was just apparently organically brought up by a coach who had been through this, a white coach who had been through this, seen the other side of it, and saw how bad it made one of his colleagues feel.
So I'm going to give you I guess a legal term. People have heard it, right? Hearsay. Hearsay is an out-of-court statement, right? That's not done, not sworn under oath or anything like that. Certainly there are exceptions to hearsay that can come in. But, for all intents and purposes, this is going to be pretty relevant, right? People were spending so much time talking about the Bill Belichick text message, which is another form of hearsay, right? That's an out-of-court statement. It's not done under oath. But at the end of the day, right, Mike Mularkey's going to get called, I would think, either as some form of a deposition. He might be subpoenaed in. He might be asked to, answer questions under oath. And, he could try to walk back his comments. I listened to it a couple times. Mularkey, the same thing I told you with Bill Belichick, right? I don't know if Bill Belichick actually knew that Daboll was going to be hired by the Giants. Mularkey might, when asked again, he might say something, hey, I thought I was going to get the job. They were leaning towards me. Nothing was official. Nothing was signed. That's how it seemed like the Titans will get around it, I would think, right? Mike Mularkey, he didn't sign any papers. He wasn't officially the head coach. And maybe that was his perception of the event. So it's not, none of these things can definitively prove, the allegations here. It's certainly very helpful to the case, but people kind of need to take a step back. That's why you hire, high-powered lawyers on the other side to say, hey, Mularkey, that was his perception of the events. He ended up getting the job, but that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. So people might be quick here to put some dirt on the grave of the Titans, right, with respect to this lawsuit. But it's just step one, right? That's why you hire lawyers to kind of fight back on the other side here. So yeah, let's see how the Titans respond. The Giants, I think, gave an effective statement when they got these Bill Belichick text messages. I imagine the Titans will say something like that. Mularkey, that's his perception of events back in 2020. Speaking of events that happened 4 years prior, but certainly the Titans are going to have their own view of it.
He's Dan Luss, sports attorney, there on a moment's notice. Bless him for that. So you should pay him back by subscribing to the Conduct Detrimental podcast, or throw him a follow at Sports Law Lust, where he can educate you on the legal side of sports, which is not covered nearly well enough. And Dan's there to do it justice. Dan, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for stopping by.
My problem, Buck. Anytime.
That's Dan Lust. There with us on 104.5 The Zone. In fact, Dan mentions the Giants' statement. I need to follow up with the Titans about a statement on this, and I will do that here in just a second. 615-737-1045. Adam in Brentwood is on The Zone next. What's up, Adam?
Hey, guys. I just wanted to talk real quickly about taking Mike Mularkey, his statement as gospel. We just kind of touched on that briefly. Luss got after him a little bit on that.
Sure.
But I think you got to look at it also from a standpoint of motivation. This is, I think, although topically different, not unlike players that in college got paid and they're coming clean later, right? They're having their confessional later to make themselves feel better.
No, I
really,
brought that up, Adam, right? He still took the job. He took the job.
Well, yeah, he's not only, I feel bad about it, he's complicit. He is tied to that forever. And I also took notice of his comment. Look, I knew from the beginning I wasn't there long term. They only gave me a 3-year deal. I think the guy's still got an axe to grind. Anytime somebody says, but I'm over it, after they've just spent however many minutes talking about it, you can pretty much disregard the whole I'm over it part. So I think that Dan's really got it, right on the money. When you start putting him under the microscope and asking him these questions,
sure,
he's going to walk back a lot of this. More importantly, it may be self-aggrandizing. He may have thought he had it. He may have been really stroked, and they said, we love you, you're our guy, but we're still going to go through this process. And in his mind, he was the guy and no one else should have been coming.
Well, and Adam, to your point, he could have, that could have been said to him, and the Titans, just to play devil's advocate, the Titans could have protected themselves by not making it official until after John was official. These are the kind of things that are all going to be scrutinized across the board. Whether Mike Mularkey walks his comments back or not, whether he feels like he was too definitive in a podcast interview, I think it's safe to imagine that Mike's not going to be doing any podcast interviews anytime soon after how this one's going to get him called into court. But still, there's a lot of different elements of this on both sides that need to be scrutinized.
And clearly, if there were behaviors by the Titans that violate the Rooney Rule and others, they're going to have to be called to task for it. But
of course,
I think everybody rushes to judgment these days. It's, oh my God, we heard X. Well, then that's gospel, and so we're done. I'm not going to consider anything else. This is what I believe. I'm entrenched. Go away. And I hate that. I'm not defending the Titans. I'm not defending Mike Mularkey. I'm not defending anybody. I'm just saying everybody needs to take a deep breath, Wait and see, and then make the judgment once you've got all the information. That's all I think.
Thanks for the call, Adam. Look at that. He got under the music. He felt it. Have you been scared to play the music on the racial discrimination calls?
No.
Made you nervous today? It'd be funny if you did it to Dan.
We've been
in the middle of done it to David Poile earlier. little long-winded there, Dave. Hit him with the music.
Start doing it to guests, and we're going to stop getting quality people to want to come on this show.
Well, that only really affects, it does affect both of us, but that only affects you more directly because you're the one having to book the majority of the guests. Oh, what is this? What is this on the phone line?
I feel like we should do it on the other side.
Do you think we should make people wait?
Yeah. Let's get some anticipation.
We have not heard from this person in a very long time. I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype. All I know is you're going to want to listen to it. And we'll do the polls as well next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Well, that show took an unexpected turn today. Rep Brian is in for Mickey Ryan. Coming up next, Blaine Bishop, of course, Blaine and Mickey, directly after this show each and every day, getting you through your afternoon, and then 3HL after that. So I'm sure they'll continue this conversation. 615-737-1045. Last call for phone calls. We said we had a call that you had to hear. But we're going to do that in a second after we get a Tiger update, because I looked up at my television, Lucas, in the middle of talking about racial allegations and NFL hiring practices and the Titans conducting allegedly sham interviews to see Tiger Woods limping. I need an update quickly.
Tee shot looked good on 10 that we just watched, but after the drive on 9, he kind of grimaced and grabbed his back as he's walking to the fairway. We did have the first Tiger F-bomb of the weekend.
Excellent.
He's even through 9, but you are seeing some signs of that pain that he's alluded to from the injuries that resulted from the car wreck 14 months ago. But even through 9, all things considered, he got off to a nice start. He bogeyed on 8 to get him back to even after birdieing on 6. But at the moment, it is Joaquin Niemann leading the way at 3 under.
Okay. Well, our Masters coverage will continue. Obviously, they'll be talking about it the rest of the day on the air here today. But Brett Kern is going to be our Masters analyst tomorrow, Titans punter, in studio. Darrington is up next. Where have you been?
Hiding out in the bleachers, just trying to make sure I keep watching everything. That's all.
What do you mean? You needed to. Well, actually, I understand that why anybody would need a break from the Zone TV chat. It can be an awfully toxic.
Took a sabbatical
from time to time. A sabbatical from that is necessary, but to not call in for weeks on end, what's wrong with you?
Hey, look, the same sabbatical that I took, it ended up from the same conversation that I had the last time I was on this show, and then nobody wanted to come outside after saying what they said. So just break away for a moment.
You know what? I should probably do that more often now. I think that would be detrimental if I did that, or Lucas would replace me
right.
if I did that. Anyway, what do you got for us, buddy?
I'm not in your position, so I can actually do that. So that's why you're Bucker Mayfield. I don't get no better than you.
Except one of us has a job and the other one doesn't right now.
Yeah, exactly. You're the man. You're the man.
Now, one of you is about to make $18 million. One's not.
No, I'm talking about Baker, not Darrington. What do you got today, my friend?
Okay, so I was just going to go with the conversation at hand, and I've come to learn, as a black guy, I've come to learn that you can't tell nobody how to spend their money. I don't care what color they are. And they want to talk about the Tennessee Titans and this. So this is the first person that actually came out and said something that wasn't a black guy that's pointing the finger. This is what I'm looking at, from the outside looking in. At the end of the day, all these billionaires over the age of 65, that could be everybody's grandparents, they come from a certain generation, a certain monarch that they have to stand by. It's green. That's all they see. You cannot tell nobody from $100 to $1,000 to $1 million to a billionaire on how and where to use their money. They want to hire a black guy to come run their organization. That's what they're going to do. They want to hire another guy to fill in their shoes. That's what they're going to do. They're going off what's made them successful and going to continue to do that. If somebody wants to change that, get together, go buy a team and change the narrative. Other than that, it's going to be what it's going to be. You can't keep getting – that's what I'm saying. Don't get mad at stuff you can't control, people. We can't control what these 32 owners are doing. Let them do what they're going to do. And if you don't have the proof, don't say nothing at all, because then it's just going to look like you're nitpicking. I hate to say it. It just is what it is. And I think you guys are doing a mighty fine job of your coverage. Keep doing what you're doing. Love you guys, man. Love you guys.
It's lovely to have him back.
Love you too, Darrington.
See, Scott and Beth Page, Darrington, they shower us in love, and then they go away for weeks and months at a time.
Scott called Blaine and Mickey yesterday with the Titans topic.
What?
I said, Scott, I miss you.
It makes me feel cheated on. Truly it does. He's right. You're not going to tell these people who to hire. The problem is there's literally a rule. The whole reason not the whole reason we have this problem. There are a variety of reasons why we have the problem, the source problem, but the rule creates variations of the problem that don't solve the problem. So I would say that the rule to this point has not been effective. Anyway, let's brighten things up. Give me some polls. Yes.
Hello, everyone listening to the Buck Reising Show. This is Benjamin Kenobi, better known as Obi-Wan. I have but one thing to say. Lucas, use the Force. Use the Force, Lucas, to help interpret what the hell Chewie is saying. Oh, scrap that rubbish.
Lucas, I am not your father. I repeat, I am not your father, nor am I Buck's father.
I was once a Jedi Knight, and what I'm trying to say is, Lucas, it's time to update the final poll results here on the Buck Reising Show. Do it now.
The entire cast of Star Wars to the club.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers, and they will deliver it to you when it gets manufactured.
Now, that was one man doing 5 different impressions. That same man is going to be the host of this radio station, one of the hosts of this radio station for the next 2 hours. Godspeed.
Doing his Mickey Ryan impression from 1 to 3 on Blaine and Mickey.
I hope Chewbacca makes an appearance.
What is your expectation of Tiger this weekend? Just make the cut? You expect him to miss the cut? Who cares? He's playing or win the whole damn thing. 36% expect him to make the cut. 22% miss the cut. 27% say who cares? They just want to see him play. 15% expect a win.
I'm with the 27%. I want him to come out of it healthy, of course.
Yeah.
You know, it not who cares, because like him limping, grabbing his back, like some of that's to be expected. And I'm sure he expected that. I'm sure the people that were responsible for his physical therapy, his rehabilitation to even get him to this point have made him aware of that. Certainly the risks of playing golf, playing in the first round of the Masters. I'd love to see him advance. I'm not going to be upset if he doesn't. I think it's spectacular that he's even out there to begin with.
Is there a bigger waste of time in NFL media than hypothetical trade scenarios? 48% say yes, but 52% say no. Our buddy Mike Herndon says mock drafts are the biggest waste of time.
Yeah, it's that one. The mock drafts are the worst. Some mock drafts are relevant. The people that we have on Mondays to do the mock draft Monday, we try to not get we do not get the irrelevant ones. Like Bruce Feldman. That's a very credible person. If he's got a mock draft, he's going to do a mock draft Monday.
And he'll be here Monday.
Yeah.
Matt replies to Mike Herndon, says, who's your favorite linebacker this year? To which Herndon says, David Long. Who would you rather have? We didn't even get to this. Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield? 77% are correct in saying Baker Mayfield.
You know what? That's for the best. I didn't need to say. You know, that's peaks off-season radio. Who you got? Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold while we live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm very glad that I'm not glad. I don't know how to feel about this. All I know is that I'm happy that news broke instead of us doing a Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold topic.
What would your reaction be if the Titans draft a linebacker at 26, since this is an audio medium? I will not go into a long list of describing GIFs on Twitter, but a lot of anger and confusion.
Yes, I think that would be an accurate assessment. A lot of the upset gifts. I saw that. I figured that we were going to devolve into these visual bits again. We should have foreseen that, but you know what? We live and we learn. You can go check it out on Twitter at Buck Reising.
Bleep Freddie Freeman? Joe Buck was right. 58% say yes, 42% say no.
Do we have the audio of Joe Buck being right? Do we have it?
Flies into left center field. Well hit back at the wall. It is gone. A home run for Freddie Freeman. How about that? In what might be his last at bat for the Atlanta Braves, he's just made it 7-0.
People got pissed at Joe Buck for that.
He was right.
Joe Buck was right. He was right. Now the entirety of Braves Internet or Braves Twitter bleep Freddie Freeman without the bleep. Those are the polls?
Those are the polls.
My goodness, what a show. It was a great one. Tomorrow will be fun, too. We got a lot of fun things planned. Catch it live or catch the podcast. Whatever you do, catch Blaine and Mickey next.